meeting will come to order at 5:07. Welcome. Glad to see everybody. Let me get to my agenda here real quick. All right, let's do roll call introductions of the folks, the board members in the room. For anybody who's listening, I'm Adrian Lawyer, chair of the board.
Good evening, everybody. Beckham Rivera, he, him, vice chair for the board.
Go ahead, either one of y'all.
Hi, Tanisha Pierre, board member.
Good evening, everyone. Leticia Trujillo, board member.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Sorry, we have to do some stuff out loud too, just for the record. So I'm so sorry. We would let you just type into the chat or something, but we can't, the IPRA or whatever. All right. So let's approve the agenda for tonight. I hope everybody got a chance to review the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? All right. Hearing none, the agenda is approved unanimously. How about the minutes from the prior board meeting and the special meeting from April 28th? Again, I hope everybody had a chance to read those through or skim them before tonight. Are there any corrections or additions to either set of minutes? All right, hearing none, the minutes for April 21st, April 20th, and April 28th, 2021 are approved unanimously. At this point in the agenda, we can hear public comment if we have anyone in the meeting who wishes to make any comment to the board. Okay. Certainly we can revisit it if anyone comes forward. Our availability for comment. Okay, so let's move to the director's reports. Then can we start with the Office of Civil Rights?
We sure can. This is Tori Jacobus, she, her pronouns with the Office of Civil Rights. I submitted a written report to the board ahead of time. The things I want to highlight are we closed 3 complaints. One was the one that you all heard at the April 20th meeting, and then 2 were due to non-response from the complaining party. Also upcoming, one cool thing I want to highlight is that I presented to the Nevada Senate regarding their anti-discrimination and hair work. They looked to New Mexico to see what we had done, and they wanted to hear a little bit more about it as they were doing their testimony leading up to their votes. And then another thing that I want to highlight is that we are co-sponsoring a community event with New Mexico Black Lawyers Association on the 27th, so next Thursday, working towards solidarity between Asian American and Black communities. The Professor Harpalane will present. He's presented at several of our events, and he's a UNM School of Law professor. Information is on the OCR Facebook page, and so there's an event that we created. So please check it out and share that event even if you aren't able to make it. That is all that I wanted to share with you outside of the written report. Are there any questions? Okay, well, thank you all so very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, now can we hear from the Office of Equity and Inclusion?
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle. Sorry, for some reason, I don't have enough bandwidth. I'm just calling.
Uh-oh, you're kind of breaking up on us, Michelle. Uh-oh. Okay, I think we'll have to come back to that. We lost her all the way. So if Michelle rejoins, we can bring that back into the agenda, which would be great. I know I'd love to hear that if we can get her back connected. But I think for now, let's move forward. We can at least keep going while we wait to see if she rejoins. Oh, okay. So here's where we are going to share our vision and goals for the board and potentially vote on goals and activities, events that we think the board can do. I'm sorry that everybody's not here for this discussion. I think it would be really meaningful for all of us to have been here to talk about this at the same time. But I don't mind going first. Is there anybody that wants to talk about this agenda item for? Oh, go ahead, Tori.
Yeah, may I chime in before
Yeah,
you all start
please.
talking?
Please.
So I've been having different conversations with people who've been involved with the board at various times. I'll include Chair Lawyer in those conversations. And we realized that this new group of board members haven't really had an opportunity to speak up about what your vision is and what you want to see done, what you want to do. And so what I personally would like to see out of this conversation is that you all share what your goals and vision are, and maybe we walk away from this with one or two action items that we can say within the next year we want to do X, within the next year we want to do Y, because we should really be doing what you all as a group want to do rather than what one member has a really great passion about. So that's my little spiel, and I look forward to hearing what you all want to do. And I think Miss Melendez is back.
I see that.
Hi, I'm so sorry about that.
We can hear you
Can
now.
you all hear me now?
Please
Okay.
do go ahead. Great.
All right. Well, it seems like just yesterday we had our meeting, but I guess a whole month has passed. No, yeah, it seems crazy. The last time we spoke, I was filling the African American Affairs Liaison position, and now Nicole Rogers has been on the job for a whole 3 weeks. So she's doing great, and she is going to be pulling together a fantastic 3-day Juneteenth celebration with a big committee of community members that are planning this. So please put on your calendars June 18th, 19th, and 20th, and I'll send you the complete event schedule. And the 18th is actually a city holiday. For the first time, the city will be celebrating Juneteenth as a legal holiday. So Civic Plaza is going to be the venue, and there's going to be all kinds of music and booths and a Black Wall Street and a kids zone and lots of fun stuff. So I'll be sure to send the board a special invite to participate in that. Now that position is filled, we're now turning our attention to filling the position for the Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Liaison. So we've received 15 applications for that, and really good applications. So we'll be interviewing in the next 2 weeks and hope to fill that position in June. Also in June, the City Council will be hearing a resolution that stands up against hate against the Asian American and Pacific Islander population. That'll be sponsored by Councillor Lan Sena. Last night, the City Council voted on our city budget. It'll go to the full council next week for final approval, but it looks good in terms of transit equity. So this is something that we have supported and advocated for a couple of years now. And the City Council approved $2.5 million to make all the buses for free for everybody, not just students and seniors. So students and seniors was a good improvement this year, but this next advancement will be making the bus and transit systems free for everyone. Also in June, we'll be celebrating World Refugee Day. That happens every June 20th. So as soon as we have that program planned out, I'll send you an invite to participate in that. And then the last thing I'll bring to your attention is that we have recently published on our website our racial equity toolkit. So it's got a whole bunch of maps and tools that we make available to the departments and to boards and commissions as they're thinking about how to start to look at their own department programs and services and take a more equitable approach and use data to help inform their planning and decision-making processes. So it's nice to be able to put that on the website because we get a lot of requests for that. And now we can really liberate that information and make it available to everyone at large. And that's kind of what I've got on the top of my head right now.
That's so great. I was so excited to hear about the buses. That's really such an amazing thing. I hear we're the largest city to make transit free that way with this decision. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we're just supporters and admirers of the advocates. It was all these young people who made it happen.
Yeah, awesome. Any members have any questions or comments?
This is Vice Chair Rivera. I just want to echo Chair Lawyer's sentiment about the busing. This is amazing. You know, residents and transportation are the biggest barriers to employment. You know, people just assume that someone needs a car, but it's so much more than that. It's licensing, it's fines, it's insurance, it's all of these things. And so great to hear that transportation could be free for everyone here. And that's just great news.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Anybody else? Awesome. All right. Thanks, Michelle, so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. All right. Now we'll return to the kind of like, how do we see this board? What is this? What did you come here with the hopes to do? Now that you're here, what do you think that we can do and should be doing as a group? That's kind of what the shape of the discussion is meant to be. Does anybody want to start? I certainly don't mind sharing from my perspective, but I don't want to step in front of anybody.
This is Vice Chair Rivera. I can go first.
Okay.
I guess for me, education is always a big thing that I like to bring up in the group setting. And so, you know, to me, that could look like various know your rights opportunities with regard to a variety of things like housing, like interacting with law enforcement, like disability know your rights for folks that are undocumented, things like that. Of course, there's various educational opportunities outside of Know Your Rights, but I feel like that's a great segue to maybe make that a regular component of our work here. And I don't know if that could be something that could be built into these Tuesday nights or how exactly that would work. But, you know, I think that's a great opportunity that we could bring to the table. But also, you know, I think that public comment is a great opportunity for folks to come and talk to us about their concerns that they believe that we can help them with. I know that when shortly before I joined this board, it looked like public comment was getting a lot of attention. Mostly, from what I understand, it had a lot to do with the racial tensions that were very in the limelight at that time. Of course, not all of it subsided, but I guess I would like to find a way to possibly make public comment more accessible to folks. And I'm not sure how we could do that, but certainly open to help brainstorm and make that a stronger piece of our board.
Denisha Pierre, and I really like the Know Your Rights segment that Vice Chair Beckham talks about. I think it's really important that because there's a lot of things we don't know. And so I think it would be really good to pull from these different community groups who know, like who specialize, I guess, in these areas such as disability rights, where they can come in and talk to us about that kind of stuff. Because we as a board, we don't really know, like we have our, our interests, but sometimes we don't know about, these specific things. And so I think it would be good to collaborate with these groups in these Know Your Rights topics. And so that, the community can know, like, what kind of rights do we have when we are approached by a police officer or whatever. I also really enjoy, I guess is the word to say, policy work. And so I'd really like to see us looking into maybe some policies that are already in effect in Albuquerque, or proposed policies, and as they relate to human rights, and see if maybe we can provide like our voice or our comment in it. And that could come also from public comments. I don't know of any sort of proposed legislation or anything coming out as far as human rights, but I think if it does come out, that's something definitely that we talk, get public feedback from, and then give our voice to the legislation or whoever is proposing this, and so that our voice can also be heard in these matters that are going on in Albuquerque.
This is Board Member Trujillo, and I echo what Vice Chair Rivera and what Board Member Pierre talked about in the Know Your Rights segments. I think that is brilliant, and I think it's going to really serve a huge purpose for our community, and not only for our within our community, but also for the board, because going back to we don't know what we don't know. I think that speaks for us as a board, because we do have special interests and passions. I, for one, as an outreach worker, I see the housing needs. Those are huge, and especially during this time of crisis, has grown a lot more. People have lost their homes, and what opportunities do they have? What, per COVID relief, if there's still anything. I know funds are running out for COVID relief, but what is still available, and just bringing those opportunities, bringing that awareness to the board, and then the board, of course, sharing these opportunities and the Know Your Rights and Beyond segments is amazing. So that has been a huge part of why I was so interested in being a part of this creative board and just collaborative board, human rights board, because I have a very strong passion in working with our community. I work with a lot of abandoned and unaccompanied youth, and they're at that age where some of them don't have parents. So I have one girl in particular who is she's raising her 12-year-old sister, and she's too young. She's 19. Her mother was murdered by her stepdad. So she's 19, and she's not old enough to qualify for housing. She can't even rent a hotel right now. So I've been working a lot with the community in trying to get her some resources, and we have found resources, but it's only for 6 months. Housing resources, I'm sorry. But it's only been for 6 months. So we have from now until October to hustle and see what comes next, in terms of housing for her and her sister. She's left to raise her 12-year-old sister with disabilities. So, and she just is graduating from high school now. So that's been something that I would love to look more into. That's my special interest, is looking into youth transitional housing. and looking into housing. I have I work with families who have recently come out of prison. So, what are their next steps, and what do they qualify for given their records? So, previous records, and so criminal records, and so there's so much that um, we're not aware of. I think that I'm not aware of, like in terms of housing, what is available and how. What else I've been doing my research, and there seems to be very, very, very limited resources for especially youth transitional housing. And, a lot of people, some of my families are qualifying for housing vouchers, but because of the lack of housing resources, their vouchers expire and they're still left with no housing. So I echo what Vice Chair Rivera talked about, residents and, placing our families, our available housing resources. I think that's in doing these segments, I think that's going to bring so much light, awareness, education. It's going to bring so many resources to our community, and that's what we're about. So thank you all for that.
Those are all such important things and great ideas, I think. So I think one of the things that remains a little bit confusing to me, and I've been on the board now with the whole different a complete almost membership turnover, and in all of that time I feel like there's always been confusion about the ordinance and the powers and the authority of this group. And I'm not an attorney, so I hope the attorneys in the room will help me to understand it better. But I think we've had some misreadings of the ordinance that make it seem like this group is empowered to do what we would call like investigations. But this is an all volunteer group that meets for an hour a month. And I don't believe that we have the skills or the capacity to investigate something like the police force in our city. I don't see how the 5 of us are going to investigate the police force, but it has been repeatedly discussed as if that's something that we should pick up and do, especially. And this is again where I want to make sure we're all just clear together, especially as it was in response to public comment. Beck, there was all this public comment that came out last summer around the George Floyd murder and the different uprisings that were taking place around the country. And this was brought to this group by the public, like the police, all these problems with the police. And even as we were hearing it, and I was hearing everyone's pain and taking it in and hearing how serious it was, how painful it was, one of the thoughts that kept running through my mind was, what are we gonna do? Like, what can we do about that, really? And if there is something that we can do, I'd like to try to do it. I mean, we all play roles in our different communities where I would definitely want to take the initiative and do something if we could, but I don't see us as the group to effectively respond to that. I think we actually more effectively respond to those kinds of conditions in our community work that we all do than we are able to do it in this configuration. And that's my take on it, but I'd love to be corrected. And I just want us to be clear as a group, whether we feel like that's a direction that we're A, empowered to go in, and B, have any kind of capacity to go in. Because I don't think that. But if everyone else does think that, then that's totally okay. Probably what it would mean is I should make room for some new leadership, But I still don't feel like I have clarity around that and what that means investigating. Why would this group investigate? I think that what it means in the ordinance is that the OCR investigates, and we're here to affirm their investigations. We review the investigations and we have to approve them or not approve them. That's what I think our role is in what would be called investigations in the ordinance. But again, please, I see Brian's ready to offer some wisdom.
Yeah, I just want to jump in to just help kind of bring some clarity, at least from the city legal perspective. I would agree with your interpretation of what the ordinance calls for. And investigation can be a very loose term, and can be very subjective based on what the person is looking for. I would agree that there's nothing in the ordinance that spells out that the board has any investigative authority to investigate any particular actions by the city or any actions outside of that, other than a review process over the OCR, but investigations. But does that mean that the board can't do fact finding to help with determining potential resolutions to present to the city council? I mean, of course, so those are opportunities for the board to ask the public to come and speak and have particular topics or themes to discuss. But as an investigative committee or an investigative tool, I think you're right that the board is very limited from that perspective. It's really more of an opportunity to look further into different problems and discuss potential solutions to present those solutions to the city council potentially as possible resolutions. But that would be my take. Tori might have a little bit more of a detailed take or perspective on it, but that's my understanding of what the ordinance talks about when it discusses anything related to investigations.
Mm-hmm. So then go ahead, Tori.
So I really love that Attorney Rowland called out that investigation word is kind of loosey-goosey and we don't have a lot of guidance around it. I would add that, well, I'm going to echo what he said about the OCR investigations and your role related to that. The board does, per ordinance, have the ability to hold public hearings, or I'm looking at the ordinance right now, so give me a second. So hold hearings, and you can review any matter or question that you want. But I think it's really important to kind of go back to what Brian said. Don't think about these as like full trials. Think about them as trying to answer a question regarding an issue or an incident. But I also think as part of that, you've got to remember that there are some areas, some legal areas, where you have no authority to ask the question. And you've got to remember to step back from those areas. And so one example is APD.
Okay, so my kind of then long-term thoughts about this were that, to me, there's kind of two important things that we can do as a group. And that for some activists, the things I'm about to propose would be unsatisfying because they don't feel like this kind of direct impact action, right? But as a city board, appointed volunteer board, it feels to me like there's two things we can do. We can craft resolutions, right? Which can be powerful, and we can have them go in front of city council. We can make recommendations in that way that may or may not turn into anything, but we can at least assert our values in that way by making recommendations, writing resolutions. And we can do education and outreach. So we can do these know your rights trainings. We can do them as part of our meetings. If we think that'll invite people, we can do them as separate educational events, like in-person or Zoom webinars. The previous board had talked about doing even a 1 or 2 human rights film festival, right? Picking 1 or 2 documentaries and showing them as a half-day thing, as like the Human Rights Board of Albuquerque Film Festival, right? And seeing if maybe it could then in subsequent years even become more, or at least be sustained if we thought that might be cool. We could host trainings like my organization. I do a lot of trainings that we call transgender cultural fluency trainings for businesses, for medical providers, for law enforcement, for everybody. And as an example, I could host one of those trainings for the public and say, this is sponsored by the Human Rights Board, right? And that's just, that'd be my training. I'm just saying there's lots of trainings even in the room and in our networks that we could bring in and sponsor as a city board event, right? So that is in my mind where we could put our efforts and actually do some of these things and have the impact that it's able to have, rather than what feels to me like kind of continuing to pursue the idea of doing things that we're never actually going to be able to do. And then we spend a lot of time talking about doing those things and not doing the things we could do, which are these things. And they're, yes, they're more limited in scope for sure than investigating the police. But if they feel like things that we are A, empowered to do, and B, have the capacity to do with the little bit of time that we all have to devote to this board, right? Like, this is not my full-time job. This is 1 hour a month that we do. And I could put another hour a month into showing a documentary probably, but I can't turn this into my full-time job and investigate the police when I'm also not capable of doing that. I don't have the skill set to do it even, right? So I feel like we've spent a lot of time recently talking about all this stuff we should be doing, but it's really not even what we should be doing. And talking about that is keeping us from doing stuff. So I love the know your rights. If we think that we maybe want to all start with that and think about how that would be structured, then let's spend a little bit more time tonight before we break talking about that being our first thing. Because that came out of this discussion tonight and everybody agreed that it sounded like a great idea. So maybe we could talk about the logistics of that. But go ahead, Lori, I hear you.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to say that for events and things like that, first, me and Crystal would love to co-sponsor with our office. And then second, we can help with some of the logistics. One of the cool things about the pandemic is that we've really learned how to exist in this virtual space. And so we can reach a bigger audience. So really, whatever you all want to do, let's pick a topic and let's pick a date and then let's get moving. And if you don't have a speaker in mind, but you have a topic, we can also brainstorm around some speakers. So it doesn't just have to be something that the 8 of us could present on.
Exactly.
I guess this is Vice Chair Rivera. Just to kind of share some final thoughts on the research and investigation piece. I mean, I didn't write the ordinance. I haven't, super studied the ordinance, but I mean, there is language in there that says, conduct programs of investigation and research. And I mean, investigation really could be to the extent of, subsequent surveys. And based on the data that we got from these surveys, these are the recommendations that we're making to city council or the mayor or whomever. So I do think maybe there is this, nuance and interpretation of what investigation is, because stereotypical person, I would believe, here's investigation and they believe like, FBI agent or, someone to that extent. But I do think, that also begs the question of some things that member has said, who is not here, had brought up in previous meetings with regard to the potential of hiring someone to bridge the gaps in the fact that we are a volunteer board. I also don't know how much of the investigation or research component can be addressed in subcommittee. I know that's another kind of lingering thing that's been floating around in our previous meetings, and I don't know if those questions could be answered now. I suspect no. I suspect that those could be more thorough conversations maybe when we get the survey approved and sent out and have results and kind of have a clearer picture as to, I don't know, what expectations our community is asking of us and what we can do within those expectations, what we can address, and what we will be able to say, I'm sorry, no, that's not us. Maybe this is group X over here. But, I do think that we should maybe spend some more time in the future kind of understanding for us what programs of research and investigation really means. And if it is just surveys and data retrieval that way, then I feel like that's good. Just, a mutual understanding as to what that really is.
Are there any other, I mean, here's the other thing about the ordinance is whatever list of things it says the board can do doesn't mean we are mandated to do it. That's the thing. That's what this conversation was meant to be about tonight. Like, do we see ourselves as a group doing outreach and education into the community about human rights? Or do we see ourselves as trying to police human rights in some way in the city? When really, to me, that's what the OCR is for. Right? Like, we're not, we're not qualified. Go ahead, please, Member Pierre.
Thank you, Chair Lawyer. So I've read the ordinance a few times, and I honestly don't get the large scale like investigations that I think might get interpreted from reading it. I get that we are here because the OCR needs us to look at, you know, their investigations and say, this is what, you know, this is what we have investigated. What do you guys think? And that's kind of how I read it, the ordinance as a whole. Specifically in 11-3-6, powers of the board, I'm just reading off of it. If you read the whole sentence for B, it says, make such investigations and studies in the field of human relations as in the judgment of the board, will aid in effectuating its general purpose. So I think when we like think of the general purpose as like our North Star, like what are we here for? What are the investigations that we can do that aid in continuing our general purpose? And that's how I read it. So if, you know, we are a human rights board, and so we want to make sure that people's human rights aren't being violated or they understand their human rights. And so the general purpose, in effectuating that general purpose, we do investigations around that, such as like the know your rights type of thing. And so I like I said, I think I don't read it as being this huge thing where we are having to investigate, you know, APD and anything, you know, like whole groups of people. And I hope it doesn't come to that, because I don't see how us in 1 hour could do that, or even us in a subcommittee could do that. And I think that begs the question of how should we be more focused on the things that we can do in the allotted amount of time that we have, as opposed to trying to do something really complicated that we probably can't even do and probably don't even have the powers to in the ordinance. And so I think that we should focus on the things that, you know, maybe simpler, may not give you this I don't know, may not, you know, give us this huge accomplishment, but it is something that we're doing to aid in our general purpose of getting people to understand their human rights. So that's just my say on the ordinance. It doesn't say what, you know, they're trying to say. It doesn't even have comment afterwards or anything. So I don't really know what the people thought who wrote this, but that's just what I get from reading over the ordinance.
This is Vice Chair Rivera. I mean, I'm all for, you know, the educational component, because I feel like that's a great, you know, segue as I kind of started my my chatter on. I just wanted to bring it up since it is, you know, part of our previous discussions, and just to kind of cite where I was looking. It was 11-3-5. Where'd it go? E3. But I mean, if that's outside of our wheelhouse right now, I mean, I'm all for not overburdening everyone who's graciously spending their time together. But I guess just wanted to put it out there as something that we could potentially explore in the future. And with that, I rest.
This is Tori. I think one other piece is that there might be things that you all want to do that you can't do today or in the next 6 months, but we work on building our skill sets to do that next year. And I think that we should also talk about and think about some of those things, because I think we all know we don't have capacity to do X, but how do we find capacity to do X? What tools do we need? What trainings and skills do we need to grow together? And then we work on building those too.
So then what's people's feelings about the survey as it's written? And are we going to administer a survey, or do we decide that we want to pursue some of the activities that are coming out of the discussion and just, or do we do both? The survey to me feels like now we're asking them to say all this stuff back that we're kind of in the process of deciding we may not be able to do. So do we solicit feedback that tells us to do stuff that we can't do? And if we want to do a survey, do we leave it written the way it is now? And I'm fine if you think so. If you think we should just send it out on social media and stuff, we can, and just see what comes back. You know,
This is Vice Chair
I put a
Viola.
little something in chat for y'all.
I see that. I see that.
I thought the survey looked great. I think to me it's a both and. I think with some, immediate goals, like for example, I believe we have mutual agreement and know your rights, right? So we can focus on that right now. Whilst this survey is going out, we're soliciting answers. Then maybe towards the end of our know your rights sessions, if you will, by that time we may have had more time to like think about what we're moving forward and doing, more of an opportunity to digest the information that we get from that survey, and have a little bit more time or not feel pressured or rushed to address all the things in that survey, as we have, programming that we're already immediately working on, if that makes sense.
Well said, Board Member Rivera, well, Vice Chair Rivera. You're going right along what I was going to say, but I wanted to add one more thing. I think that it's good to still do the survey because there are some really good, valid questions in there. And also, that would serve the purpose of having our data collection for our board moving forward, which would also gear our work moving forward. And putting those two things together, the discussion, tonight's discussion that we have now and the survey data, I think would give us a really good structure for moving forward.
But isn't one of the questions on the survey even something like, should we continue our work into researching the police?
Yes, and I think that's a great point, Board Chair. And I think that with what Tori said, like focusing some of the questions, I don't think we should probably use all of those questions because you're right about that. But we could, like Tori said, center it around our new goals and the discussion of tonight. But some of those questions still work. Not all of them, but some of them do.
Totally. Yeah, go ahead, please, Member Pierre.
Thank you, Chair Lawyer. So I think that we should go along with the survey, and I think that is a good segue into the next thing, which is the survey. But there are some questions that are very specific, and I think that we could tweak them or take them out just to be more general with the other questions. And I think that it's important to do this survey because even though we couldn't do like X, say for instance, that since we've been saying investigating APD, let's just go with that. And instead of doing, if a lot of people are saying that, then maybe we can curate like something else that we can do. Like we can't do X, but we can do Y.
Yes.
And so that way we can get a general idea of what people can do. And then we look at our ordinance and say, well, look, this is outside of the scope of our ordinance, but here is something that can lead to something else that maybe would be helpful, for this group of people who are interested in this specific thing. And so, and I think the survey is, some of the questions are general enough for us to get that kind of information, so that we can say, okay, well, they're interested in this, and this is something that we can do, or this is something that we can't do. But since we can't do this specific thing, here's something that's similar that we can probably, pull off. So I think we should continue with the survey, but that's That's my opinion from the subcommittee.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Board Member Pierre. I think we could restructure our questions for our survey to align with our ordinance. I think that it's a simple, well, I shouldn't say it's simple because we want to make sure we cover it all, and it's so broad. But oh, thank you for pulling that up, Board Chair.
I think that is our next agenda item. So if we can look
Yes.
at it all together, we can pick these questions, right? And then I think
Yes.
I'm in total support. I think y'all are right. If we send out a survey and take our time compiling the results and looking at maybe long-term strategic goals from the survey results, that would be great. And in the short term, we could think about how to actually like incorporate a small Know Your Rights segment into the next meeting, into June's meeting. So that might be a really smart thing. Maybe it'd be cool to do something LGBT for the June meeting since it's Pride. Maybe we could do Know Your Rights for LGBT people, or I don't know, something. We can think about it. We'll come back and vote on that after we do this. How about? Okay. So the first question summarizes it quotes from the ordinance, right? And then the question actually is, what tensions, hostilities, prejudices, and/or discrimination within the community should the Human Rights Board conduct research and investigation into? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Member Pierre, did you have something?
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button.
Oh, Zoom.
When you put me in the full view mode, it messed up. So I was trying to figure it out. I don't know if this is the right version of the survey questions.
Oh,
I think
okay, let me
there's
see.
a newer version.
What about, let me see. I have one that's all marked up.
Let me,
Do you have the most recent?
yeah, I'll resend it.
Okay. I think you can share.
Can I drop it into the?
I think you can share your screen. I had the ability to just share, so I bet you can.
Okay, let me see. Oh. I used to be so good at technology, and now.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. I think I might. Hold on.
If you hover over the bottom of your screen, you'll see the little green button that says with the up arrow.
Wait. I think I have it now. Hang on. Let me see. Is this it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So it starts at the top with quoting the ordinance in both cases. And then question number 1 is, do you believe that the Albuquerque Human Rights Board should conduct research and investigation into tensions, hostilities, prejudices, and/or discrimination within the community? If yes, what topics would you like to see researched or investigated? Is that the question that we want to ask? Yeah, just see what folks say. What do they offer in response to that?
This is Vice Chair Rivera. I think that's a good question.
It's like a can of worms question to me, but I guess we can at least find out where people are coming from, right? That's what we're doing, is just gauging what people's concerns are, right? We're not promising that we could do anything about it. We're just wanting to know where people's heads are, right? So, okay, great. Okay, so then question 2, what training or educational opportunities can the Human Rights Board provide to the community regarding rights and opportunities? Yeah, that's just what we were talking about, right? Do y'all feel good? Okay. Which public and private agencies and community that Human Rights Board work with? That seems to me. Okay. Are there any current or proposed? Yeah, this is great. This is what you were saying, member Pierre, too, right? Are there any current or proposed city laws, ordinance, policy that relate to human rights that you believe we should review? That's awesome. Okay, and then 5, what do you believe should be the number one priority of the Human Rights Board? And what do we have listed? We have education and awareness, recognition and highlighting of other human rights work, advocacy, contributing to the formation of the Community Safety Department, evaluating the current and future training of the Albuquerque Police Department, domestic violence prevention, community outreach, and other. Okay, do y'all still like those options? Any takeaway or add? No, leave it. Okay. Do you believe that the Human Rights Board can protect the human rights of the persons? Oh, go ahead, please, please.
Thank you. One of the ones that I was thinking of just now for number 5 is COVID related issues that might be happening. That might be housing, it might be HIPAA violations or HIPAA requirements. But since we're kind of still in the age of COVID, maybe one of them be something human rights with COVID as like an intersection. I think that there might be some interest in that.
Okay, great.
I like
Great,
that.
great. So number 6, I have to say that question concerns me. I mean, this is again, we were slipping over into saying we are going to protect the homeless and protect their rights, and that we're not going to do that. And we've had these concerns brought to us meeting after meeting, and we have never had even a single idea about what we could do to help with people needing water access and bathroom access and all that stuff. Like, this feels like we're leading the public on by asking this question. What we're asking them to tell us to do something we already know we can't do. I think it's okay. We asked up here if we think homelessness should be, oh no, it's not even in here. Then why is homelessness not in here? Yeah, go ahead, member Trujillo.
Yes, so can we restructure that question to align with the ordinance of what we can do for the homeless community? Because we didn't mention the homeless community in question number 5. So maybe this is a place, and we could just restructure it to align with our ordinance.
Okay, great. What do y'all think? How can we word this in a, yeah, please go ahead, member Peter.
I don't know. I think that it should be in question 5. And then, but with question 5, I think there should be like a secondary question that, okay, you think that this is the number one priority, but what about this is the priority? Instead of having homelessness its own question, because I think that any one of human rights issues can be its own question. So if we're specifying homelessness, and really if we're specifying police violence and training of police officers, which is 6, 7, and 8, then we could really specify any other human rights issues that are up in number 5. So I honestly, I think we could move 6 into 5 and then add a question saying, like, you think this is the issue, this is the priority, what about this is a priority, and then get rid of 6, 7, and 8. But that's my take.
Chair, lawyer, I have kind of a non-responsive comment to that.
Okay.
The original question regarding homelessness was much broader, and so the one that you just deleted had narrowed it some. But I think that in light of your conversation today, what about homelessness do you want to do? Is it homelessness prevention? Is it impacting, reviewing and modifying the city policies that involve homeless people? So, excuse me, persons experiencing homelessness. So that would be the policies regarding the encampments, or policies about homeless shelters, things like that. Like homelessness itself is really, really broad. Just my contribution.
Go ahead.
I agree with that, Tori. I think that if we're going to talk about homelessness, what can we do as a board for like, I think that when we look at the ordinance, we can advocate, we can work with other community organizations or agencies to bring awareness in terms of what our homeless community, some of the things they might be experiencing. But I think if we look at the ordinance, that I think we need to be more specific, like in terms of advocacy, or working with other agencies, or bringing awareness, doing more. I don't know. I mean, can we do outreach for our homeless community? And what does that look like for our Human Rights Board? So I think we really need to be mindful of that, of like how we're going to target homelessness, because it is so broad. There is so much to it. There's so much to it, because that's what I do. I work with the homeless community. And it's just so much. There's so many facets of it. Of homelessness. So if we want to narrow it down, I think advocacy, and I think working with other agencies, awareness, I think resources is something we should focus on. But I don't know about protecting the rights. I mean, what does that look like?
Exactly. Yeah, this is where it gets complicated, you know. This is why it's hard. It's hard to do a survey this way, especially none of us are pro evaluators. Every one of these things, there's so much science and research around how you ask these questions and how many questions and the format of the questions and all that stuff. You know, this is very rough grassroots effort to try to collect some kind of information from some small percentage of the community about their feelings about what our priorities should be. And this is a really difficult thing to capture, in my opinion. It's very hard. I understand what you're saying, Tori, about how question number 6 got in there, but we cannot ask question number 6 because we can't do anything. You know, how should we protect the rights of homeless people in Albuquerque is not a question we can ask the public. I don't know, you know.
I think you can, in the policy arena, you can make recommendations to Mayor Keller, City Council. But I agree 100% with you that the way that was asked isn't going to get you the types of answers that you can work with. And so it might be better to just remove it and do for C, you have advocacy, but maybe do a separate policy one that would then include some things like domestic violence, homelessness. I'm blanking on any other ideas. Maybe some APD type of stuff in policy.
So that almost feels like a secondary question more to question 4. You know, we're asking, are there current ordinance or proposed ordinance that you want us to review? And then what the next question is, are there recommendations that you think the board should make around policy in any of these areas, I guess, right? Homelessness being one of them, because that's what we
right. And oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you.
One of the things I like about number 4 is that I'm hoping that some very well-informed people will come and they'll say like the policy about X, like point you directly to it rather than just saying the policy about violence, which that's clearly not one policy.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, it makes me almost say like, let's just put it out as is and see what we get and process the results. But I feel very concerned about asking this question in this way. I mean, do we want to shift the question to be entirely about policy here? Are there policy recommendations around issues of homelessness that you feel the board should make?
What if we changed protect to address?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess all we're going to do is see what people say, right? Whatever they say is whatever they say. And then we'll take that feedback and see what we can do with it, you know? I guess I'm just concerned about continuing to perpetuate. Like that's sort of what happened last summer was a lot of people came with a lot of comments and a lot of hurt to this group wanting something to be done. And all we could do was listen. You know, what we did was hear people, you know. So I just don't want to continue to perpetuate the idea that we're a place to bring these sort of grievances with the expectation that we will be able to take some definitive action. For instance, protecting homeless people, you know. But I think all we're gonna do with this is just collect the data, collect the info. We'll sort it out. We'll sort it out later. Okay. So then is there anything in these last questions that you absolutely feel has to be changed before we send it out? I know we've all reviewed this already. Is there anything in here you're just like, I can't let it go out like that for me?
Are we currently conducting research on training of police officers?
That's what I said, but member Assad said yes, that in the pre-existing subcommittee members who are no longer on the board, there had been some work done into looking at the training, the content of the training. But I wasn't, it was a subcommittee effort, so I don't even know, wasn't on that subcommittee. And the other members of that subcommittee are no longer on the board. So that's the other concern I had about that language is that it seems like there's an ongoing effort, and I'm not sure there is an ongoing effort. I think if anything had been initiated, it has been interrupted.
I guess for kind of saving the question and one general comment, and then I'll hand it over to member Trujillo because I see her hand kind of waving in the camera there. But I would propose just removing continuing its and phrase it as, would you support the HRB researching or conducting research on the training of police officers? That way it doesn't give the impression that there's actual research going on, because it sounds to me like that can't be confirmed right now. But my one general comment is what I see or sense with this survey is really gauging the perception of what community has of what we do or what we can do. And part of our response, I would think, could be establishing some transparency in what we can and cannot do, because I feel like otherwise we're just going to keep doing what we think we could do. The community is going to keep thinking what we can do and just refusing to do. But you know, hopefully with this we can kind of gather what the impression is, and then be able to maybe issue a statement or make that a part of the conversation. And this is what we can do. This is what we'll focus on this year and next year. But know that a hard stop, we can't focus on issue XYZ. And with that, I'll pass over to Linda Trujillo.
Thank you, Meister Dimera. Actually, that's exactly where I was going. So you got it. You got it. And the only thing I would add is question number 9, where it says, would you support the city providing funding and staffing to the Human Rights Board to carry out its powers? That powers to carry out its, I think that, yeah, you got it. I think that poses a better question. Would you support the city? Okay.
Is that okay with y'all? Those 2 edits I just made, are they okay? I edited 8 and 9. It's okay. 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 All right.
Can I
Is
ask
there
a
any
question?
other feedback? Yes. Yes.
Adrian and team, do you really expect to get a bunch of no's to 8 and 9? I think everyone's just going to say yes to that. The way they're written, really, what type of monster would say no to providing funding to you all? What type of monster doesn't support more research on training of police officers? So is it necessary to ask? I mean, maybe, because then you let the community know you care about what they're thinking. But I think that's worth considering.
Well, I think
Member
that the other
Trujillo.
thing thank you. And I think the other thing that would work in our favor is that at least we asked the question, we got community input, and we have the data. You know,
I
so
do agree that it's kind of a leading question. I agree with that too. I mean, I agree what we're going to get the feedback is yes, but I don't think that obligates anybody, which is I think what Member Trujillo is saying. Like, so yeah, a bunch of people are going to say yes to the funding, but that doesn't mean we have to pursue it or that anyone has to give it to us, I mean, it's just a question. And we're going to ask all these questions and then figure out what we do with the responses. And, some of it is going to be disappointing. This is the point. This is what we're saying is we're trying to help rectify some misperceptions. I think even within the board, we haven't been clear about what we can do and what we should do. So how would the community be clear on what we can do and what we should do? So this is sort of an effort for us to clarify internally, but also I think to help folks in the city who know about us know what we are really and also what we're not able to do. Go ahead, Member Pierre.
Thank you. So for number 9, I personally think a more helpful question would be like, if we had a paid position for the Human Rights Board, like what would you expect that person, what would you want that person to do? Not only am I not clear about that, I would probably like feedback from other people to see what they would think would be a good, and I think that would be helpful if this is something we're trying to bring to the city, to say to city council, to say, look, we do need a paid position. This is what, all these people think we should have this paid position for. So, can we have this funding? But that, I think that might be more helpful.
What do you think? Is that worded appropriately? Or is it what would they do? I don't know. What functions would they perform?
I think functions with it.
Okay.
To perform. Yeah, just there you go.
Yeah. It's all right. Not would. Okay. Is that okay? Is that all right? Okay. Yeah, that at least doesn't presuppose. Yeah. The other question was only going to get one answer. I agree with that. This is much more asking people to think it through. If you think that's necessary, what is it necessary for? Which is good. Okay. All right. Are we comfortable with this going out?
Chair Lawyer.
Yeah.
Can you give me at least about 3 or 4 minutes to just look it all over again?
Absolutely.
All
Let me
the
go
changes.
back to the top. Hang on. Let me go back to the
Thank you.
top. Go ahead.
So Chair Lawyer, I have one comment. The question number 8, would you support the efforts by the Human Rights Board to research the training of police officers? Did we decide to stick to the word research or do address?
Well, I think we were just saying we're going to look into what the content is. I mean, I'm so sorry that member Assed is not here to tell us what they were doing,
Yeah,
because
yes.
I'm not sure what this was. I'm not sure what this was. We know that the cadet classes get specific training, and that actually it's Director Melendez's office that structures those trainings. And like my organization participates in doing trans awareness for the new cadets, So in terms of new cadets, we know a lot about training that they receive. Was this about existing officers? Was this about use of force training? Was it something about the consent decree? I don't know. So I don't know how to word the question because I'm not sure what they were doing. And now we're not saying continue, but we're still reflecting back on something that was already initiated, we think.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think research is okay. It's just fact finding, right? So that's all we're saying. It's sort of like going back to the ordinance. It's not necessarily like an investigation. It's just learning more about it potentially,
Yes, because in fairness to us, the new board members, again, we don't know what's already been conducted or the extent of it. So, so I don't know if that word research, like, is it really an intentional research investigation that's being done? So, and with that board member Asid here, I guess we'll leave it as is until.
Is there a better choice? Is there a better choice of word?
I was thinking.
Look into or something. I mean,
Yeah.
This is Vice Chair Rivera. Having kind of looked over it again and realizing that number 7 does already address potential conflict between community members and violence, especially with the follow-up question 7A about what areas need to be addressed. I would think that in a way, research into training of police officers could be, a component of areas that we would still, that could still be addressed by the city. So I say all that to say that I wouldn't be opposed to mixing number 8 in that, there's a more general, broad question that would kind of eat that question up in 7 and 7A.
Member Pierre.
Yes, thank you. I also think that 5 E kind of addresses it too. It says, what do you believe is the number one priority? And so it's kind of already there.
So are we hearing just scratch 8 and let it be captured in the other 2 questions? Okay.
Yes.
Does everybody come? Okay, great. All right. Anybody need some more time or to see a different part of the screen? Any other obvious corrections or edits?
This is Vice Chair Rivera. I think it looks great.
Okay.
I agree. This board member.
So if y'all are cool with it, I'll save this version and send it to Tori and Crystal, who can do whatever. Oh yeah, please, Member Pierre.
For number 5, and then it was just with a blank. I don't know if we just wanted to put a line there and take the with a blank out.
Oh, I see. I'm gonna probably leave the formatting to Tori and Crystal. I think it's gonna go into a Survey Monkey or something. It shouldn't be a Word document, period. But I think that's right. Let's set it the best we can for them. Absolutely. Okay. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So I am
one. Oh, we'll need to talk some survey details once you're wrapped up. Oh, I think you closed it. So I guess we are wrapped up. we'll try to get it into SurveyMonkey. If there are any issues with SurveyMonkey, who should we reach out to?
Like, what do you mean?
Like we have too many
Like what-
questions, SurveyMonkey doesn't like our format, things like that.
For now, come to me. We'll try
Okay.
to figure it out.
Okay. Well, then also you should be able to take a look at it before it goes out. So you'll just be our contact person. And then
Okay.
once we generate the link, you all need to be ready to share it, because it's useless
Exactly.
if you don't get it out into the community.
Although we'd also love for OCR to do it on their Facebook page and all that. If you could
We
help
will.
us
We'll do it on
distribute
Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, great. And then we all
And
need to do
maybe,
it on our social.
Yeah, and then maybe I'll ask Michelle's team if they can do it in their newsletter, but that depends on timing. And then that begs another question. When do you want this to go out? When do you want your responses? Like, how long will it stay open?
Well, I'm not trying to drive the bus, but I feel like it's better if we don't do it forever. Probably a 2-week open period is about enough. We just really push it out in that time. And for me, it would be the sooner the better on getting it out. You know, we've talked about it enough now, and we've finalized the questions. And so, you know, it doesn't need to be A1 priority, but I would say let's try to get it done before the next. Try to get it out there before the next meeting, the next HRB meeting, if we can. It doesn't need to be closed by then, but in process would be great.
We'll shoot for getting it out next Tuesday. Give us a week.
Okay.
That
perfect,
way,
perfect.
if we can meet that goal and we do a 2-week turnaround, we should have some results for the next meeting.
Great. All right. Okay, so let's go back, and I know we're about to need to adjourn here, but let's think about, do we want to do a I know you're right segment as part of the June board meeting? And if so, how do we do that? You know, like I can certainly, yeah, we could definitely get the ACLU involved. Our friends and partners over there, I'm sure, would come and do some kind of a brief training. Or we can reach out to some other folks in the community who could provide it, you know. But are we in agreement that that was something that we want to do? Do we want to wait and not try to squeeze it into June and think more about it, or what do y'all think?
If I can help kind of narrow those questions a little bit, what rights are we talking about? Because we have lots of rights. So you all need to think about that part. And then also, is this something you want to do at your June meeting? Or there's a baby, easily distracted by cute babies over here. Is it something you want to do at your June meeting, or do you want to keep your June meeting for your business and then do this on another night so that you can devote a full hour or more to the topic? Again, just suggestions for thought. I'm not pushing you in any direction.
This is Vice Chair Rivera. I think either option in terms of during our HRB meeting or sometime maybe towards the end of next month those are both great options to start the conversation on topics. I feel like either some LGBTQ know your rights, since it will be Pride Month, would be great. I think also COVID related know your rights is very timely as well.
Member Pierre.
Thank you. Specifically for the COVID, which I really like and which I was really interested in because I was looking at it on Facebook earlier, was HIPAA violations and whether or not, you know, like businesses asking you if you're vaccinated, or your job, or really, you know, anybody who's asking you about your status of being vaccinated, how that affects HIPAA, or how HIPAA and COVID are, you know, how they cross each other right now during these trying times.
That seems like a really timely thing to talk about. Even just the different, yeah. What is medical privacy? What is HIPAA? You know, kind of in this moment with the vaccines and stuff. It's good for people to know, you know, either way. So here's just me, and I you know, I'm always concerned. I don't want to. It's not meant to be heavy-handed. It's just like we need to wrap up. We're at the end of our time. So to me, I think it would be cool if we could. This is a natural subcommittee to me. Would be education, and or outreach. That was one of the subcommittees before even. You know, so if we want to make that into a committee, then we could get that training put together for June. And my thought is it doesn't really need to be an hour, probably. I don't know that I would want to sit through an hour of that, probably. I think we could condense the like, what do you need to know about your rights around COVID and HIPAA into probably a 15 or 20-minute segment that would be high impact and useful to folks. And if we brought it into our meeting, it would help we could publicize it and bring people to the meeting. You know, if we want to increase public comment or at least encourage participation from the community in the meetings and coming to the meetings, making the KYR segment part of the meeting becomes almost like a draw to the meeting if you're interested in that, rather than a separate, like if we, and again, I'm not selling I'm not hawking it. Okay. It's just what I have experience with. If we did want to sponsor me doing my training as an HRB event, it would need to be at a different time because it's a 2-hour training. So we couldn't do it as part of our meetings. But this to me feels like it should be encapsulated more. You know, it's going to be the information that it is. So if it were just me by myself deciding, I would say, let's do it at the June meeting. Let's do the COVID thing and let's form a subcommittee. Thank you so much. Let's do a subcommittee so that those folks in the committee can get it done, can find the right presenter and get that person invited for June, because we won't be able to do it as a group. We won't be able to have rolling quorum or do emails about it. You know, if we want to do it in June, we have to make a subcommittee empowered to go do it so that it can be done in that time frame within the next month. But it's also totally fine with me if we say we'd rather wait till July and take more time to think about it. And anything anybody says is great. I'm just offering my opinion. So what do y'all think about those questions?
It sounds to me like, you know, I think a COVID related know your rights is the best bet in terms of addressing the topic area. I agree that if we do embed it into our HRB meeting next month, that would entice folks to come and attend and see what we're doing every month. In terms of a subcommittee, I mean, if that's what's going to get us from point A to point B, then most definitely we can vote on creating a subcommittee to address not just this upcoming Know Your Rights, but education in general, as I understand.
Mm-hmm. That would be the group that would at least be able to go and do logistics on anything that we as a whole group decided we wanted to do. Like if we do want to screen a film or sponsor a longer training or just coordinating the KYR stuff, the subcommittee would at least be able to go and try to figure out who's the trainer and get them in, you know, or the group of 5 can't do that. We can't do that together in between. So that's the need for a subcommittee, is just so that that group can act independently. You know, we're very limited in what we can do with it being a public meeting when we're more than 3. Oh, look, see? And Jordan already had some good stuff in there about ADA and EEO. That's awesome. Thank you, Jordan. So what do we want to try to get it into the June meeting, or do either of y'all think that it shouldn't be part of the meeting? Do you think it should be separate? Are there different opinions about that? No, you're okay with it? You're okay with that part of it? Okay.
Yeah, I think either option is good. But if we wanted to focus more, like take an hour, like you said, I'm okay with that as well. I think either option works.
Well, and we're kind of piloting it, you know. If we do the Know Your Rights in a 25-minute segment as part of June meeting, and then we realize, we really should have given that more time, you know, then we can not do it as part of the meeting in July and make it a separate event or what, you know. We kind of got to try some stuff and see what happens. We don't know, you know, and it might go great and it might seem like it wasn't that smart to do it that way. And what are we going to do? We got to try it, you know. Because I totally hear that. We could realize, ooh, that was really needed to be a much longer session, or wow, we didn't even need to give that much time up for it. I don't know, right? We won't know till we get there. Go ahead, Tori.
I agree that you need a subcommittee to sort out some of these pieces. And I think one of those pieces is what exactly you're asking. So for clarification, HIPAA doesn't apply to a business that you go into or to your employer. Instead, that most likely not to your employer, only some very rare occasions. HIPAA does apply to your healthcare provider or other similarly situated healthcare providers. I think the question you all may be asking is, what privacy rights do you have with regard to your vaccination status? But then you may want to take a look at the link that Jordan provided to see what information is out there, and then what within that information is what you all want to share. And so just again, you don't have your question quite right yet, and that's okay, but someone needs to take the time to get that question for you.
So I would move to create an educational subcommittee for purposes of navigating future trainings by the board.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, and let's do the vote. Vice Chair Rivera,
Aye.
Member Trujillo,
Aye.
Member Pierre,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. That means the motion passes unanimously. So, or do we have anyone who would be willing to serve on the committee, on the subcommittee? We can
As
trade
Vice
them
Chair
out.
Rivera, I'll participate
You
in the
down?
subcommittee.
Okay. All right. Cool. Is anybody else interested in helping to coordinate this training for June? Okay. I'm a
Lisa
natural
Porter.
fit for any education. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, you are a natural. I'm like, yes, I second that. But so we would have from now until June 15th, is that correct? The next meeting? To have it complete? I'm just
Mhm.
trying to make sure I have my dates correct, just so that, because this is with graduations and all, it's been quite hectic.
Totally. Well, and again, to me, this is about finding the right person in town who can come and do a discussion about this, right? This isn't the board members aren't going to deliver the training. We're just going to find the person who can speak to this topic and get them in there at the right time, you know? So it's mainly coordinating is what the subcommittee will do for this. It's thinking who that would be and reaching out to them. So are you a yes or a no to that?
Yes.
You are? You're good?
I'll be
Okay,
on the
all right.
chair with Vice Chair.
Okay,
Beckham.
okay. Okay,
Okay.
great. Okay, great. So yes, Member Pierre.
I have a question. As far as the subcommittees, are we able to switch out the subcommittees? Like if
Sure.
a member, Beckham and Leticia are doing it to this month, but can somebody else do it next month?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think that's just, yeah, that to me, it's totally fluid. You know, we're forming the committee. If members realize they didn't really have them to be on the committee after all, if somebody else says, oh, I really want to join in on the committee now, then we'll just figure it out as a group for sure. We can't have more than 3 on a committee at any given moment.
Okay.
So that, you know, but I'm sure anybody would be happy to tap out or trade out or do whatever if we need to, you know, it's, yeah. Okay. So for this month, then let's have it be member Rivera and member Trujillo to coordinate this. Let's keep it as lean as we can to make it easy. If y'all need any help or want any input from me, I'm available for that. And the 3 of us can talk about this even in email together as long as we don't involve anybody else. So we can't start an email thread about who we think would be good and then send it to member Pierre. That becomes a rolling quorum, right? So, but the 2 of you can talk and you can certainly bring me in, and I'm happy to help you if I don't make it more of a mess, right? So if you 2 have it, that's great. If you want my help or my input or make phone calls or anything, I'm available to be an ad hoc member of the committee if there's needs. Okay. Okay. All right. Is there any other comments, questions, feedback on the survey, on the Know Your Rights training, on any of the last 2 agenda items? Is there any new business? All right, terrific. Then hearing no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much. Looking forward to the June meeting and seeing what we bring for that. Thanks, everybody. Thank
Thank
y'all.
you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. Bye.
You too.
Good night, guys.